Have you ever wondered why some moments of intimacy stay in your memory forever, while others simply fade? I used to think intimacy was only a matter of chemistry, timing, or mere attraction, but the more closely I looked, the more I realized that something was missing in that definition. There is a hidden layer, a silent language in the way two people connect, and it is precisely this invisible bond that often decides whether a connection becomes unforgettable or insignificant.
The strange thing is, most of us never stop to decode this language. We experience the moment. We enjoy the pleasure. But we hardly ever ask ourselves what it all means beyond the physical. That is exactly where it gets exciting. Because intimacy is not just what bodies do. It is what feelings express in a way that words can never capture. And the action that reveals this truth most clearly is not the one you would immediately expect. It is not the kiss, not the embrace, not even the act of love itself. It is another gesture, often overlooked, often misunderstood. A gesture that, when you understand it correctly, can change everything. Your view of men, of relationships, and even of yourself. Before I tell you exactly what I am talking about, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever felt confused by someone's actions? He said one thing, but his body told a completely different story. I remember a time when I thought I knew exactly what intimacy meant, until I had an experience that shook my certainty. It made me doubt whether the signals I had trusted really said what I believed. And that confusion stayed with me much longer than the actual physical moment. So let us pause for a moment. Why do we trust words so much when the truth is often visible in actions? What if the most vulnerable, most honest, and even most courageous message of a man lies not in his words, but in his actions? I do not want to reveal the answer yet, because part of the power lies in you recognizing it yourself. But I will tell you this. The action I am talking about is not casual, not mechanical, not something every man does with every woman. On the contrary, it is one of the clearest boundaries between superficial connection and real depth. Maybe you already suspect what I mean. Maybe you do not. Either is fine. Because in this video, I will explain it step by step and show you not only what this action is, but also the 5 hidden truths it conveys every single time. If you stay, you may never look at intimacy the same way again. Let me make one thing clear. I am not claiming to have all the answers. I too have made mistakes, read signals wrong, convinced myself that someone meant more to me than he actually did, simply because I wanted to believe. And I also underestimated moments that, in retrospect, were much more meaningful than I understood back then. That is why I am not here to preach, but to share what I have discovered, questioned, and re-understood. Maybe you will agree with me, maybe you will disagree, but either way, it is a conversation worth having. Because intimacy is not just desire, it is meaning, and most people overlook that meaning until it is too late. Here is my promise. If you are ready to go deeper, if you want to explore not only the physical, but also the psychological and emotional level, you will recognize patterns that you have missed so far. You will understand why some men act the way they do, why some connections seem magnetic and others leave you empty. But before I reveal the first hidden truth, ask yourself, when was the last time you felt that someone's actions spoke louder than their words? Hold on to that thought, because it could forever change how you see intimacy. The first hidden truth is devotion. And I know at first glance this word almost sounds contradictory. Devotion. Is intimacy not actually passion, strength, initiative, proof of desire? That is exactly what I used to think. I believed that for intimacy to be alive, a man had to lead, control, prove himself, without any doubt about his dominance. But the more closely I looked, the more clearly I recognized something unexpected. True depth often begins where the illusion of control falls apart. Think about it. Men are taught from an early age, never let go, be strong, be unshakable, show no weakness. Even in the bedroom they carry this pressure with them. Last longer, impress, never fail, never hesitate. And yet in that one moment when a man completely gives himself to you, when he stops thinking about how he appears, how he performs, and directs all his attention only to you, something profound happens. That is not weakness. That is strength showing itself as devotion. I once asked myself, why would a man risk stepping out of the role he has had to play all his life? The answer, as I understand it today, is devotion is an act of trust in itself. It says, for this moment I do not have to control anything. I do not have to prove myself. I am here to give to you, to lose myself in you, to put the light on you and not on me. And that is rare. Rare because it takes courage. It takes the courage to take off the armor, even if only for a few minutes, and to say, here I am, safe enough to let go. Some claim that this means nothing, that it is just routine, another step in a script. But have you not felt the difference too? Have you not felt when someone is just playing a role, and when he is really there, fully present, fully immersed? That energy is unmistakable. One feels mechanical, the other sacred. That is exactly the core of devotion. It is not about what the body does. It is about what the heart says through the body. At that point, my perspective changed. I used to admire men who seemed unshakable, who never let their facade fall, who appeared powerful and untouchable. But over time, I noticed that these men often seemed distant, closed off, as if there were a wall between us. The men who truly moved me were those who could let that wall fall, those who had enough self-confidence to give without having to dominate. This devotion made me feel chosen in a way nothing else could. Because when a man can devote himself in intimacy, it means he is grounded enough to know his masculinity is not fragile. He is secure enough to shift the focus away from himself and entirely onto you. And it is exactly there that connection begins to transform. Ask yourself, when was the last time someone gave to you without haste, without calculation, without expectation of what he would get in return? How did that feel? For many women, that is the moment when intimacy stops being an act of pleasure and becomes an act of devotion. Then it is no longer just about what he does physically, but about the courage to step out of the spotlight. That is devotion. And real devotion creates a space in which intimacy can expand, away from performance, towards something much more honest. The truth is, not every man reaches that point. Some never, because the thought of letting go is too threatening for them. But those who do show something extraordinary, not only about how they see you, but also about how they see themselves. They say without words, I am enough to let go. I'm enough to let this revolve around you. I'm enough to give myself. And in the moment you recognize that, you begin to see intimacy through a lens you can never unlearn. But devotion is only the beginning, because within it lies the seed of something even deeper. If devotion is the door, then trust is the foundation. Without trust, intimacy collapses and becomes something mechanical, something that feels hollow, no matter how much passion you try to put into it. Yet trust is one of the most fragile and most easily overlooked aspects of closeness. We talk about it constantly in relationships. Trust in money, trust in fidelity, trust in words. But the trust I'm talking about here is different. It is physical, yes, but also emotional. Because in those moments of deep vulnerability, he not only reveals his desire for you, he reveals his faith in you. When a man crosses this threshold, think about what it means. Men aren't taught to feel comfortable with vulnerability. They're told to hide their fears, maintain a certain image, avoid anything that could make them seem weak. And yet, in this act there is no mask, no distance, no escape. He is close, he is open, and he chooses to stay. That is trust in its purest form. I used to convince myself that trust was found in grand gestures, confessions, promises, loud declarations. But the older I got, the clearer it became. Those words mean little without the small, consistent actions that carry them. And in intimacy, this is one of the clearest signs. Because for a man to take this step, he has to believe that you won't make fun of him, that you won't belittle his masculinity, that you won't see his giving as weakness. He has to trust that you will receive him, openly, gratefully, with a kind of reverence for the vulnerability he shows you. And you feel the difference. You feel when a man is present with his trust, and when he's only acting out of obligation. There is a softness in it, an attentiveness, a way he responds to your reactions, not because he's insecure, but because your well-being matters to him. This is not a technique. This is trust. To be honest, I often dismissed such moments in the past and told myself, this means nothing. It's just sex. But today I see clearly, the men who brought trust into intimacy were the ones who left traces in my heart. Their actions told me, I feel safe with you. I want to give myself to you without fear. And that sense of safety changed everything. It allowed me to relax, to open up, to give myself in my own way. Because here is the point many overlook. Trust is not a one-way street. It's not just about him trusting you. It's also about you trusting him enough to receive, to let yourself be seen in your rawest form, to let go of control and say, I believe you will treat me with care. Receiving is itself an act of courage, and when two people meet at this point, intimacy becomes something extraordinary. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you trusted someone so much that you could let your facade fall? That you were unprotected, vulnerable, without preparation, without defense mechanisms? Rarely, right? That's exactly why it's so significant, because trust transforms a physical act into a bond. It turns the simplest gesture into an unspoken promise of safety and devotion. When a man decides to meet you in this way, he doesn't just give you pleasure, he gives you proof. Proof that he feels safe enough to be vulnerable, that he is brave enough to risk closeness, that he is open enough to let his walls fall with you. And this trust is not limited to the bedroom. It flows into the entire relationship. Suddenly, conversations become deeper. Barriers fall. You feel safer, more connected, freer to be your true self. That is the power of trust, but as powerful as trust is, it is only one layer, because when trust connects with devotion, it opens the space for something even more sacred. If devotion is the door and trust the foundation, then adoration is the atmosphere that fills everything. And I use this word deliberately because adoration carries weight. It doesn't mean submission or loss of power, but reverence, to see something as worthy, as special. For many women, this is the most transformative moment, because then it's not just about being touched or desired, it's about being celebrated. Think about it. How often do women receive contradictory messages about their bodies? Be confident, but not too noticeable. Be sexy, but not too sexual. Be proud, but not vain. These constant contradictions create shame, hesitation, self-doubt. And yet, in the midst of all these conflicting expectations, when a man meets you with devotion, with the energy of, I don't just accept your body, I adore it, I want to enjoy it, I want to honor it, then something awakens in you. I still remember how hard it used to be for me to truly feel comfortable in my own skin. I wondered whether I was desirable enough, whether I was too much or not enough. But in the rare moments when I felt adored rather than merely wanted, the doubts became quieter. I felt seen, appreciated, even radiant. That is the power of adoration in intimacy. It cuts through the noise and gives you the undeniable experience of being perceived as something precious. But let's be honest, not every man gives that. Some treat intimacy like a checklist, quick routine, without real presence. And you feel that immediately, don't you? You notice when someone is distracted, indifferent, almost careless. But you also feel the difference when the energy shifts, when time seems to stand still, when every touch is intentional, when every gesture says, I am here, fully with you. That difference is adoration. And here lies the beautiful paradox. Even if it seems like he's giving you everything, adoration nourishes him too. Because by seeing how you let go, how your body responds, how you show trust and devotion, he is affirmed as well. He feels alive, strong in the most loving way, connected, not just physically, but emotionally too. Adoration becomes a shared fuel. For him, it is an expression of devotion, for you the experience of worth. I used to think adoration was too big a word for intimacy, something that belonged in religion or ritual, not in love or sexuality. But the older I got, the clearer it became how much reverence can change the connection between two people. When a man adores you in this way, he's not saying, you are an object of my desire. He's saying, you are an experience I cherish. That subtle difference changes everything. Because suddenly your body is not merchandise, not something merely accepted, but something celebrated. And when a woman feels celebrated, she blossoms. She opens more, she gives more, she trusts more. Adoration creates safety, and safety lets desire grow wild without fear. Ask yourself, when was the last time you didn't just feel desired, but truly honored? Not just wanted, but valued. That feeling is rare, and that's exactly why it's so meaningful. It's not about performance, but about presence. Not about duty, but about devotion. And this devotion leaves a memory that lasts far beyond the moment. But here is the point many overlook. Adoration is not just emotion. It is also investment. Because when someone truly adores you, he also decides to give his time, his attention, his energy. And that leads us to the next truth that makes intimacy even deeper. If devotion is the door, trust the foundation, and adoration the atmosphere, then emotional investment is the proof that everything is real. Because the truth is, anyone can imitate the motions. Anyone can play passion. Anyone can act out intimacy like a script, but you feel the difference when someone truly invests in you. When he doesn't just satisfy a fleeting desire, but puts his energy, his focus, his time into you. That cannot be faked. In the past, I confused attention with investment. I thought that if someone was attentive in the moment, it meant deep affection. But attention can be superficial. It can be as short-lived as the pleasure itself. Investment, on the other hand, leaves traces. You feel it in how someone lingers, how he adapts, pays attention to your reactions, how he doesn't rush to the end, but enjoys the journey. That is emotional investment. It's not only about what he does, but how he does it. And here is where it becomes powerful. Investment is a decision. He could just as well focus only on himself, on his own climax, on his quick satisfaction. That would be the easy way. But when he decides to invest in you, he's sending a signal. You are worth my effort. You are worth my time. You are worth me slowing down. And when you feel that, when you perceive this devotion, the meaning of everything changes. I have often asked myself, why is emotional investment so important? For me, the answer is clear. It transforms intimacy from something interchangeable into something unforgettable. Sex without real commitment fizzles out quickly. It feels empty, as if you just checked a box, nothing more. With effort, however, a bond is created that echoes long after the act. It becomes a memory, a connection, a story your body and heart preserve, and that is exactly what makes the difference. Let me be vulnerable for a moment. There were times when I accepted intimacy without investment. I told myself it was okay, I didn't need more, desire alone was enough. But every time I left with a quiet emptiness, that's when I realized I didn't long only for the act, but for the meaning behind it. And meaning requires effort, because effort says, I care enough to give more than the minimum. I care enough to notice you, respond to you, attune myself to you. That separates passion from mere performance. And here comes another paradox. Even when investment seems like it only goes to you, it nourishes him as well. When a man invests in you, when he sees how your body reacts, how you surrender to the moment, that is his reward, his confirmation that his effort has created something real. In this exchange, both gain. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt that someone truly invested in you? Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. How did that feel? For most, that is exactly the difference between forgetting and remembering, between feeling used and feeling honored. Emotional investment is the bridge between adoration and commitment. Because when someone keeps investing in you, devotion becomes more than just devotion. It becomes loyalty, consistency, unspoken commitment. And that leads us to the final truth that ties everything together and reveals the deepest message. If devotion is the door, trust the foundation, adoration the atmosphere, and emotional investment the proof, then unspoken commitment is the quiet message that holds everything together. In the end, words are cheap, promises breakable, labels often unclear. But actions speak a language no one can fake. Exactly this act, done with presence, devotion, and intention, often says more than 100 declarations. I used to think commitment had to be loud. Rings, titles, public declarations. Over time I realized, real commitment often shows itself quietly, in moments no one sees, in the consistency with which someone gives, in the fact that the focus returns to you again and again, in the fact that he shows up without having to shout it from the rooftops. When a man is intimate in this way with real care, he is not chasing a fleeting thrill. He tells you, I am here. I choose you. This moment should have meaning. That doesn't automatically mean forever, but it means, in this moment he commits his energy, his vulnerability, and his presence, and men do not give that lightly. That is why I call it unspoken commitment. Even if the words are missing, the meaning is there. Have you noticed how the smallest gestures can feel like the greatest promises? When someone stays instead of rushing. When he remembers your signs without you having to repeat them. When he shows up for you even though it would be easier not to. That is hidden commitment. In intimacy, it is no different. When he chooses to give in this way, he signals, you are not just a body to him. You are a bond, a connection, something to which he wants to give his whole self. And when you recognize that, everything changes. You stop asking, is this just sex? And feel, this is intimacy that speaks louder than words. Honestly, I had moments when I doubted whether someone really cared, whether I was truly chosen, whether the connection was real. Looking back, it was not his words that gave me the answer. It was his actions. Actions that said, you are not just here for my pleasure. You are my partner in this experience. This is meant to have meaning. That is the commitment that needs no words. And when you feel it, you know it. Ask yourself, when was the last time someone showed you through their actions, not words, that you matter? How did that change your view of him and your view of yourself? Intimacy at its highest level has nothing to do with techniques, not with performance, not even with the act itself. It shows what is truly there: devotion, trust, adoration, investment, and ultimately commitment. And once you see intimacy through this lens, you cannot unsee it. You notice which connections are shallow and which are deep. You begin to value not only desire, but devotion. You realize that the language of intimacy has always spoken to you. You just hadn't yet learned to listen. So here is my invitation. Don't skip the next moment. Don't dismiss it as just sex. Pay attention. Listen. Feel what is being communicated. Ask yourself, what is he really saying through his actions? And, more importantly, do you allow yourself to receive it? If this has opened your eyes, if it has given you a new view of intimacy, then go deeper with me. Like it if it resonates with you. Subscribe so you don't miss anything, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because real intimacy is not just about bodies. It is about connection, devotion, and about unspoken truths that reveal everything words cannot.